Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Bad Times, Good Stories podcast, Quarantine Edition. I'm Joe Flanders, and I'm thrilled that you are here for today's conversation with Black Veil Bride's drummer, Christian Coma. He's one of my favorite people. I've known him for almost a decade now, which is crazy. He's just one of the best people that I know. And, he's been on Average Joe a handful of times, which was a lot of fun to work with him on that. And anyway, we talk about some embarrassing and hazardous romantic entanglements that he found himself in. And we also just kind of do a deep dive into the struggles of being a musician in LA and chasing that dream and all the stuff that happened before he found success playing in front of 90,000 people at a music festival in Europe with Black Veil Brides. So it's a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know that I've been on a sabbatical for like 6 months, but I'm glad to be, if there's one positive in all this, it's fairly easy to connect with people and do these Zoom interviews. The downside of Zoom interviews is that the audio at times is a little choppy. So sorry about that, but I think by and large, it's pretty solid. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Christian Coma. CC, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic on this lovely day in Southern California. How are you today?
Yeah, the same. I almost feel like an idiot even asking people how they're doing because we're all doing the same at this point.
Yeah, trying not to go get stir crazy. I did quarantine and stay with a friend one night, and the next day I thought I got the COVID, man, and I got super freaked. I was having I don't know if it was just anxiety or what, but I was flipping out, and so I kind of took that as like a lesson, just like stay at home. But I made sure this friend hadn't been anywhere or gone out, stayed home for a month and stuff like that. And so it was just kind of a lesson learned the hard way. And so I even got tested last Friday, which by Friday I was feeling fine. But just trying to stay sane, do at-home workouts and help the family out and stuff like that. So
yeah, I'm glad. For viewers or listeners, LA has actually opened up testing to all anybody in LA County, which is pretty cool. Whether you have blatant symptoms or not, you can get tested, which is nice for a peace of mind.
I was like, I for sure have it. Either that or I'm having like a minor heart attack. And so I just had like some tightness in my chest. I think that was probably because I was like taking pre-workout, and that may have like interacted with medication and stuff like that. So that will do it to you. I mean,
yeah, exactly. But it's funny how you mentioned like you made sure your friend hadn't like gone anywhere or anything else. I feel like that's just going to become like, we're all just going to be like drilling each other. Where have you been? What have you been up to? Who have you?
Totally. I've been saying like, I don't know when this is going to open up. I'm in a group chat with, different groups of friends and stuff like that. And I'm just like, well, LA's, supposed to open up soon. So, I mean, this problem hasn't gone away yet. So like, the infection number is going to skyrocket. And then, then I get in my head and I'm just like, I'm never going to be able to leave home again, because I do have elderly parents. And so that's the reason why. And if it was just me, fine. I would have probably been out this whole time and been, just wearing a mask and taking safety precautions, obviously. But I think I'm probably, could fight it. But, with elderly parents and having to help them very often, I don't, it definitely causes a bit of not animosity. Yeah. I want to fight.
Concern. Yeah, just angry. Damn you, parents.
Yeah, damn you, old folk. No, but it's it is concerning, and so having to take I just don't know when I'm going to be able to leave, and so and then there's that whole other thing. Like I think if for those of you who don't know, I am a professional musician and I tour in a band internationally, and so for for the time being, if I go on tour, like, and we have like these VIP meet and greets and stuff like that, that's a whole nother realm of, worries and anxiety to deal with. And so, every once in a while I'll just sit here and get in my head and get super depressed. And, hopefully I talk to some friends that pull me out of it. And
Yeah, dude. No, that once every 2 weeks, I just embrace the sadness of all of it.
Yeah.
Like day to day, I'm okay, but now I just, something will hit me, or I'll just I work at I'm actually wearing the shirt. I didn't mean to, but I work at a summer camp where I teach kids how to make movies every summer, and I kind of held out hope, foolishly, that it would still happen, and because the kids come from all over the world, and it's a cool thing, and they haven't. It's possible the last 2 sessions in early August might happen, but when they said it's probably not going to happen, it just hit me really hard. And so then it's just oh right, and then that turned into, when will I be able to do anything? Will I ever be able to leave this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, same.
And then I just I'm sad for a couple hours, and then I'm like, well, nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, same. I'm man, yeah, it gets to you. But,
it does.
Having a good support group and friends and stuff like that, and obviously doing things, like this.
It goes a long way, just having some interaction, albeit digitally. So I pride myself on my segues. It's probably been hard to find any romance in this lockdown pandemic. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Every romantic encounter, if you will, is a FaceTime or a Zoom call or something, some form of technology, and not the right technology, but just some form of technology, interacting with people, which, it opens up a whole new world. You could, date people all over the world.
Yeah, right.
But it's it's kind of tough at this point, to
definitely. But I understand that we can time travel to the days when we could interact with people, and from what I understand, that isn't so easy either.
No, yeah, I'll
you got some stories?
All we have is time to reflect and think about memories and things like that, whether good, whether bad. For some reason, I have such a twisted mind that it loves to just fuck with me, and it just replays every embarrassing thing that I've ever done in my life. And then
you're on the right show.
Yeah, perfect. And so it's literally, I'll stay up until about 5:30 in the morning sometimes, just thinking about every completely embarrassing thing that I've ever done. And so there's one story that I'd love to share with you today.
Please.
So, as I mentioned previously, I'm in an international touring band. And so when we're not on tour, we're at home, we have a lot of free time and, downtime and stuff like that. And so when you're traveling with people and, you develop these friendships and things like that, you just want to hang out with them, and you're kind of comfortable in your bubble, if you will, And so we have this merch guy named Jesse, and I used to hang out with him all the time at on off times or down times when we weren't touring and stuff. And so he had a roommate named Billy, and both of those friends have helped me, move into apartments, move out, at the drop of a hat, because I was dating a psychopath that was abusive. And so one time when she was at work, I'll get into that. Actually, I'll probably have to get into that story. So these guys have been around for years. Jesse sells our merchandise on the road. And so I started dating this particular girl. I will refrain from mentioning her name. And
want to give her a fake name?
Sure. We'll call her Lori.
Lori? Okay.
It was not Lori. This is a fictitious name. But there's this girl I was dating named Lori. And how this all started, now that we already mentioned technology and dating, every once in a while I'll go through Twitter. This was years and years ago. I can't even remember how long ago, but and I saw this really attractive girl DMing me, and she had a great sense of humor. And I remember actually saying this to myself, oh, this girl's pretty and she's funny and seems, intelligent enough. I would love to find a girl like that. I'd love to date a girl like this. Where are these types of women in my life? Why are they always on the internet or just far away or and some random like, ooh, hot singles are looking for you in your area. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, they're not, asshole. This is not.
I've met all the singles and they're not hot.
Yes. And so, anyways, to fast forward, we developed this relationship, and we saw it. We started, talking online and developed this relationship. And then finally the time came where we were to meet, and I haven't exactly been batting 1,000 on people I've met on the internet. They're all crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And it all ends up in some kind of tragedy, heartbreak, or some big dramatic moment. And so I had a lot of trepidation going into this. And so I was like, sure, let's meet at a public place. This is back when it was a cover band called Steel Panther, which is a really awesome yet ridiculous like cover band. They're incredibly talented, but they wear like spandex and have, this big flamboyant hair, and they're just an incredible band. So I used to go like every Monday when the House of Blues in Hollywood was open. So I was like, hey, so I'm going to be going to House of Blues this Monday to go see Steel Panther. I always get a table on the balcony, like in the middle somewhere. So, I'm bringing my buddies Jesse and Billy. Like, would you guys, would you want to come hang out? Totally up to you, no pressure. She's like, yeah, I'll bring some friends too. It sounds like a fun night. So I remember getting at this table. She's supposed to be there at 9, and I'm like, a little nervous. 9 comes around.
Sorry, how long had you guys been like talking online at this point?
I don't know, maybe a couple weeks.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, a few weeks, a month or so. And I got to the point where I'm like, oh, she doesn't appear to be a serial killer or a crazy person. Little did I know, looks can be very deceiving. So anyhow, I'm waiting for her at this table, and I'm just sitting there waiting, and 9 o'clock shows up, and she's not there. And I'm starting to get nervous. I'm like, fuck, dude, I got stood up. So then, I'm with Billy, and they're like, dude, don't worry, chill. It's like, watch the show. It was like 9:30 comes around, and I'm like super stressed. I'm like, dude, she's a half hour late. And it's like 9:45, and it's like 9:50. And I'm like, all right, like I got stood up. And so I'm like kind of bummed. And I just start ordering like tons of shots. And I'm like, all right, that's it. Like we're getting hammered. It's like an hour late now. And at that point, I mean, like in hindsight, I'm like, dude, she's an hour late, whatever. But I was just like, it's probably a fake page. Like some fan created this fake persona online. You know, you can never like
catfished.
Yeah, exactly. Catfish. You can never like believe anything you see on the internet anymore, I feel like. So sure enough, I get like hammered, and because I'm just like, self-medicating to make me forget my,
of course,
my rejection that just is currently taking place. I'm in the midst
drink
of
away
it.
the sadness.
And all of a sudden this girl, Lori, we'll call her, shows up. I remember she was like absolutely gorgeous. And I was like, oh my God, wow. She just had this gaggle of friends that were all beautiful. It was like this whole team of like stunning looking women. And I remember just going, oh my God, like, wow, this is good. And so I'll fast forward to this because this is not the important part. This is all one big elaborate setup for my story that's coming up. And so, we dated for, I don't even know. I've literally repressed every memory from that relationship because it was so terrible. But it turns out she had, several mental illnesses and was at times very verbally abusive and threatening. And for one particular evening, we were at a bar. It was in Hollywood called Angels and Kings at the time. It's no longer open. And I was just at the booth hanging out with my buddy, and we were, having some drinks. I showed up with this girl named Lori, and she got mad for some reason and marched off. We got in an argument. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you went to go buy drinks at the bar. You just never came back. So she got mad, started screaming at me, and I'm like, this girl is a psycho. She marches off, comes back, and there's a guy that looks exactly like me, and he was like long black hair, wearing a bandana. She goes up to him and completely punches him right in the mouth because she thought it was me outside the club. And I'm like, what in the fuck are you doing? And this guy's like, oh, crazy bitch, I don't even know you. And like, so I'm like, dude, there's that girl was like Captain Red Flags. Like that's her nickname. You know, it's like everything she did was a red flag. Like flirting with other dudes. You know, like just wanting expensive gifts. Like so many crazy. She was just a crazy person. And I'm not trying to make light of mental illness, but when um when it becomes to the point where it's like abusive and you know your
Yes.
significant other no longer feels safe in a relationship, and you know you try to get them help and they refuse it, and they swear they don't need medication, they swear they don't need to talk to anybody, and they're not the problem, you're the problem. I think that's the problem. And I know it's a lot harder for certain people to admit that they have mental illness and
Right.
need help. However, you know, it got to the point to where it was dangerous, and you know dishes were getting broken, and all the neighbors thought that I was the abusive one, but it was actually the exact opposite. And at that point I couldn't leave the relationship. And so
Did you
uh,
just feel committed to it at that point? Like you could, why
well,
couldn't you
mean,
leave?
I cared about her a lot.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then I was also scared to leave because of what would happen. And so um you know, it got to the point to where I had to literally wait till she went to work. And my buddies Jesse and Billy, I was like, she's at work, I got to get out of here, bring your truck. And so we literally just got all my clothes, I left all the furniture, plates, towels, like everything, my
Right.
god, line opener, like all my knife set. Like I'm so pissed. I should have taken everything because she was not good to me. But so I left everything and I just bailed. I got my clothes, my PlayStation, and my movies, and I left everything else, and I just got out of there when she was at work. So she came home, and obviously I got in trouble, and she was like, "Did you move out?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I told you for like months I was leaving you. Today's the day. Congratulations."
Yeah.
You know, she just would not get over the fact that I left her, and how could I leave her? Like she's, you know, and the whole ego thing came into play and stuff like
Right.
that.
Victim
So through this,
mentality type.
yeah, so through this breakup, um, you know, after that, it got to the point to eventually she was like writing me threatening text messages and left me a threatening email or emails, text messages, and a voicemail. She just called me crazy, threatening, you know, and I was on tour months after that. And she was like, you know, you go to Atlanta, no one's going to be able to save you. I know people there, like pretty much insinuating that she's going to have me killed, right?
Yeah.
And so I read, you know, several months after that, that she was like playing the victim card online and stuff like that. And I, you know, have a little bit of power and a tiny bit of intellect. And I'm like, no, crazy person, this is not how this is going to work out. And so I took her voicemail and I ended up making that the intro to my drum solo. And it was a voicemail of her saying that if you don't pay me rent by tomorrow, you better not change your name and your face, but you better change everything about you because you're going to die. Call me back. Like pretty much you have to pay for my rent still. And like, or you're going to die. And so I just flipped the switch when I saw her playing the victim. And so I started my drum solo with that. And so for like a full tour, which was incredible. But it got to the point where I just heard her disgusting voice by the end of the tour. And I was like, or like 5 shows in, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this the whole tour. Like I can't hear her voice.
Right. I was going to ask. Yeah.
It's just a constant reminder of turmoil and heartbreak, and you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there was I went through a very dark period, and there was a lot of rebuilding internally that I had to do, you know, and mentally, and, you know, bringing my self-esteem back up, because less than a week after I left her, she was already like sleeping with one of my friends. And so she was a very person. She would say hurtful things, and she pulled a knife on me in my own apartment. You know, anytime I'd try to leave because I didn't feel unsafe, she would say she called the cops and say that I hit her, which I never laid a finger on her. But it got to this point where it was just like one of us is going to end up in jail or I'm going to end up dead, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I had to get out of there. And so anyway, so yeah, fast forward, during the rebuilding process, there was this whole side, and I just chose to not really deal with it. I wanted that part of my life over. And so like every mutual friend or people that I met through her, I just didn't really want to associate with them anymore. And so one of one of these friends kept coming after me, and I always had a feeling she had a crush on me, and but I never was really aware. And it was like one of her best friends, and again, a very beautiful woman. And I was like, I don't really, sorry, like I don't want to be friends. I don't want to associate with anybody from that like time period. That's just like a really bad time in my life. Like I wish.
Yeah, I've had that too. You just like want to forget it ever happened and just like not,
right?
Yeah.
And you're just like anybody or anything. I mean, that's why I just leave furniture when I leave girls. I'm just like, I don't want anything to do like half of this shit. I don't want any negative vibe or negative association, even with a TV or a couch. I don't want to look at this couch and remember bad times or anything like that.
Right.
Or maybe I want to remember the bad times with great stories. You never know. You never know. Hey, Yahtzee, there it is. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so this girl kept coming after me, and I kept like turning her down. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be friends. And so she was like, you were right the whole time. I always took your side. And it was just like kind of fishy to me. And I was just like, but it was like, I didn't think there was anything romantic involved. At least she alluded to that fact that it was not going to be romantic and she wasn't trying to date. She just wanted to be a friend because I'm a great person and she knew I was going through a hard time. And obviously, after several months and you're still kind of like broken up and just not the same person, you're vulnerable. And so
exactly. Yeah, that's the word I was going to use.
After several weeks, I'm like, all right, let's like meet up for a lunch or, let's just like hang out. And so we were like started talking. We were just friends and it wasn't romantic or anything like that. And then, she's a great person, really attractive, and, we're both single. And so, I didn't really know where it was headed. And so this one particular time, I think we were supposed to go to a dinner, and this is like the pinnacle or maybe the turning point that it could turn romantic. And it might be, we got along really well. We were always laughing and it was like no pressure,
right.
She wasn't like abusive and verbally abusive and like
right.
have
the bar is pretty low for her to be
right, like mood swings,
in your life.
Mood swings like you would not believe, like, oh my god, like completely turn into a different person, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing.
Yeah.
And so this person's like, all right, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's grab a dinner and just hang out and chat and see what happens, and just playing it by ear. There's no pressure. It's not like a date or anything. I was like, could be a date. Is it a date? I don't know. It's really unclear. It's like that gray area where you're like, maybe it's unclear because she wants it to be a date. Maybe I don't know. Whatever. Let's just see what happens. So,
yeah, my experience is that going into a situation like that with the gray area always ends well.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And so it was interesting. And so I'm at lunch, and I'm with my buddies Jesse and Billy, and I was at this place, and it was called the Hollywood Way, and I was eating barbecue food, and it was in North Hollywood, and I don't feel bad for sharing the name because I had a terrible experience there, and I'll never go back. And so we go there. That was our local spot. We'd go for drinks, and this is when Fireball whiskey's a big deal. So we'd go a shot of Fireball and a beer, and that was our little pit stop. And we're having lunch, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go see this girl later tonight. We're going to dinner, but grabbing lunch with the boys right now. So we get these two waitresses, and I just thought it was odd that there's two waitresses, but they normally do that when one's in training.
Sure.
And so I actually hadn't drank at that point, and I was like, oh man, I need to loosen up a little bit. So I'm like, oh, we should make it a team. Like, we'll make it teams. So like whatever nationality you guys are and one of us is, then that'll be your team. Like you could serve them and you could serve. So I asked this waitress, I go, what's your ethnicity? And she goes, oh, I'm Italian. And I go, oh, I'm part Italian too. So you're a spicy meatball, huh? And I didn't really understand that can be taken as, an insult. And so she got really offended, and she was like, no, I'm not a spicy meatball. You calling me fat? And I go, no, spicy meatball. Everybody liking the spicy meatballs. And she's just not having it. Then now she thinks I'm making fun of her ethnicity, and Italians. And I'm like, I'm part Italian. And she's just like being rude. And so that was a huge swing and a miss. And so here's why that's important. So I'm like, all right, I really need like a drink. So I order a shot and a beer, and I don't have 100% confirmation, but I would say about 99% sure that she poisoned me.
Oh God.
In my shot or my beer. And so I don't know if you know this trick, but there's like a Visine trick, and I think that's what she did.
Oh, right.
And and here's why that's important. So I take the shot, I drink my beer and whatever, and I'm with the boys, and I'm just like, this is awkward now. Now, like, every time she comes back, she's just glaring, and I'm embarrassed, and I'm like, get me out of here as soon as possible. I get and I take off, and I tell, my friends Billy and Jesse, and I'm like, hey, love you guys. See you soon. Thanks for going to lunch. Barbecue was great. I get in my car. I had a truck at that time. And I start driving home, and all of a sudden, I have the worst stomach cramps I've ever had, in my life. And I'm like, what in the world is that? And then I feel it, and I just feel like this is disgusting, but like just the worst case of explosive diarrhea about to come on.
Dumb and Dumber style.
Oh my God, exactly like that. Literally exactly like that. And so I called Jesse and Billy, and I'm like, where are you guys? I need to stop by your house, because we were really close to their place. And they were like, oh, they left, and they were like on the way back, but they didn't exactly make it back yet. And so I literally was about to like crap in my pants. I couldn't hold it. I don't know. I've never felt like that before. That damn spicy meatball, she got me. She got me good. So I literally was about to shit my pants. I pulled my truck. I didn't even have time to park it. I just pulled it in a random driveway that was by where Jesse lived. And I was running to his house to see if the door was unlocked, and I couldn't make it. And I literally had to pull my pants down and all over the sidewalk. Broad daylight. It's probably about 3 p.m. I'm in the middle of this city called North Hollywood, and I'm shitting on the sidewalk like a crazy crackhead in the middle of the afternoon because this waitress poisoned me because I called her a spicy meatball. And I have might not be a date in like an hour.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the time frame was. Yeah, so you have like an hour?
Not enough. I was supposed to be heading over to her place to just like run into her, and then we're going to, like go out to dinner. So I'm shitting all over the sidewalk. I don't know what to do. I don't have toilet paper. There's like explosive diarrhea. It looked like somebody put like an M80 in my ass or something. It's gross. I'll leave out the gory details, but some diarrhea got on my pants. And all I could think about is this waitress and how I'm going to leave them just the worst Yelp review, And I'm like, oh,
get the last laugh.
I'm going to get them so good on Yelp. And so Jesse and Billy finally get there. They're laughing hysterically. And I'm like, you guys, and so I run up to their bathroom, and I just can't leave the bathroom. And at least there's toilet paper in there. And I'm just like, dude, something is not right. Like, oh my God, what happened? Right. And so I stay there for a bit, and I don't know what
Real quick, did anybody notice you shitting in the middle of broad daylight? Did you have any interactions?
I hope not. I mean, no one was like walking by me.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, hello, miss. Don't find me.
I didn't see anybody. Hopefully nobody saw me. I think I was so embarrassed that I was trying to poop in this little like tree planter, and I couldn't make it. It was an emergency. And so, spending a little time at, Jesse's place, I was like, all right. So then I had to go to this girl and go to her place and explain to her what happened. I mean, at this point, we were good enough friends that I felt like I could be honest with her, and we had that relationship. And it wasn't like, I was like, look, the waitress just poisoned me and I shit my pants. So I don't know.
Did you smell like shit if it was on your pants?
Not that I knew of. I was just so embarrassed, and this came out of left field, um, and so she was really sweet. She was like, "Oh, that's okay. We'll just stay in tonight. Here, I'll start a bath for you. You should definitely take a bath." And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love one." And it actually ended up being like a really sweet evening. And I was really embarrassed, but at that point, I always saw her as a friend and never as like a potential, significant other. And so,
Right.
um, yeah. And so it just ended up being like really funny time. And then, eventually one thing to another, we started seeing each other, and that didn't work out. And yeah, that was another story. But yeah, it was just an interesting time of my life. That whole time, and just going in and out of relationships, shitting on sidewalks, getting poisoned. And so I did learn a very valuable lesson. Never either willingly or unwillingly insult the people that are serving you food, because
Yeah.
this could definitely happen. And so, one of my more embarrassing dating stories.
Yeah, that's a good one. Did you leave the Yelp review?
I don't even think I did. I hope that place closed down. I used to go in there and eating barbecue, but like I never went back to that place, obviously for good reason.
Right.
And I said I was going to go back and like yell at that waitress, but I'm just
No, that's happened to me before. I'm indignant. Like I remember at U-Haul, like I couldn't get my truck. Like the whole system crashed for like 3 hours. And I was like, I'm gonna call them and do the thing, and then I was like, I don't, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
But so when you started dating the friend of the ex, were they still friends? Were you still interacting with?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right.
Not at all, because I didn't want to have any mutual friends. I didn't want the ex to know what I'm doing or where I'm going, because she would just tend to show up where I am.
Right.
Once I was off of tour and back home in LA, she would just show up at bars and like all the clubs I would go to, like she would show up. And so it got to this point where I started developing like anxiety. Like, is this psycho gonna like be where I'm planning on going tonight? And so I wanted to cut all ties, and so that's why I tried to cut with her friend.
Right.
Obviously, she chose my side, and she cut ties with that girl, with this so-called Lori girl as well.
Did you take the threats from Lori seriously? Like when you were in Atlanta, was there any part of you that was like actually kind of fearful?
Yeah.
Or did you?
Yeah, I had them like print out pictures of her. I didn't think she was going to show up because she said it was like her friends, but her family was from there. And so, or around there in Georgia. And so it was just, I didn't really think anything was going to happen. She's a crazy person, but you never know. I mean, you never know, especially when you leave somebody and you're pretty much supporting them.
Right.
And then you give them, fair warning for several months, and then they never take your warning seriously, and you just take off, because you fear for your safety. It does. You don't know how they're going to react, and so luckily the band has a security guard, and so he was notified. I mean, the club was notified over there.
Sure.
And, I mean, tour manager and everyone that works for us was notified. For the whole tour. I mean, obviously there's some safety precautions you need to take with a mentally unstable person like that. But yeah, it was just kind of a crazy time in my life.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I know you already kind of touched on it. It's such a delicate thing because I mean, I can only I briefly dated. I was 99% sure that she was a heroin addict.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I was totally ill-equipped to even handle a situation like that, much less even just know that that's what was going on. But it was like she would go to the bathroom and then come back out, and like she was living in slow motion, like on a dime. She was slurring her speech and just like, hey, how's it going? But she was like pretty and wanted to make out. And so I was like, I'm lonely. This seems like a great idea.
Oh, man.
And I took her to a New Year's party with like a bunch of my college friends just because I wanted them to see, like, see, I've got a girlfriend. Look at me.
Yeah. See, I did the thing.
Yeah. And then like within an hour, she was just like slumped against the wall talking to my friend's cat and like trying to take a Christmas sweater off of the host. And it was just like a total backfire. Like, oh my God. So then I like brought her back to her place, and then we got back to her place, and it was like 11, and then she just like passed out, and I was like, well, I guess I'll go. And then I was walking out, and then she like shouted down for like a Romeo and Juliet situation. It was like, hey, you want to come back up and like start the new year, right? And I was like, well, that does sound nice.
Yeah.
So I went back up there, and by the time I got back up there, she was passed out again. And I was like,
Oh no.
Damn it.
Oh God.
And so now it's like 11:30, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to get crosstown back to the party. And so I just leave, and then I got a parking ticket at like 11:50 on New Year's Eve. I was so angry. And so then I just like sat on the curb, and like that may have been the first year that you could like stream the ball dropping on your phone or whatever. And I just sat there just by myself, just like, well, I guess this is New Year's. And then like went back to her. I went back to the party at like 12:30, and everyone was like, looks like nothing's changed since college. And I was like, gosh.
Oh God. Wow. So
And then I didn't see her for a while, and then she showed up at a play I produced and was heckling the actors during the show. And like, it was just a nightmare.
Oh my God.
So I had to like kick her out at intermission, and there was some new guy there, and we didn't even say anything. Like, he clearly was like not okay with how she was acting, and we just had like a non-verbal, like, he was like, ah, and I was like, and just kind of like closed the door. It's like, you've learned, my friend. Get out now. And it's obviously, and I've seen on Facebook that it seems like she's like gotten her life turned around and is like married and everything, which is great. So you there's this, it's always kind of bittersweet to laugh at these things, just because you want them to get their life figured out and all that. I was just not the person. We had only been seeing each other like 6 weeks, and it was like, I'm not the person to like, this isn't my area of expertise. So anyway, I can relate on some level to winding up in just bad situations.
I have quite the history of that stuff, and so I mean, it's a work in progress, and I've there comes a point in realization like, well, Chris, I mean, you can't date 12 crazy girls in a row. So maybe you're the person that's either driving them crazy, or are you really just attracted to less than stable people? And so, it's, I guess that's what's been going through my mind during, these times of quarantine and stuff, and all these embarrassing times. And I'm just like, well, let's try to figure this out. So like, what came first, the horse or the cat? Did I make them crazy, or am I just literally attracted to people that are, less than stellar, let's say? And so, at some point you got to be honest with yourself. Everyone else is not always the problem. You know what I mean? Right. So, maybe there's, patterns of my behavior that drive people off the edge, or, I live a pretty, I've really, really toned it down a lot. I used to live a very, fun, active, fast lifestyle. I'm a bit grown up now. I don't party as much and things like that. And so, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just, maybe I just need therapy. You never know. I need a therapist, but
no, I can relate. I for the longest time, I mean, thankfully, Karina and I have been together for years, and that's like the first real solid relationship I've ever had. But the thing I kept repeating was just going after people who weren't interested in me. It'd be like, I'd be like, oh, I hear you, but you will be eventually. And then, when I would finally have the realization, or they'd tell me or whatever, I'd be like, oh, but, and then I would be heartbroken. It's like, no, but they've been telling me that for months.
Yeah.
But that's just, so I finally just figured out like, oh, this shouldn't be a struggle. Like, it should just work.
Love makes you blind. So many relationships. Even my most recent one, I cared for this person so much. I did things I've never would have expected myself to do. And, you try so hard. When you care about somebody so much, you just ignore the red flags.
Right.
And there's things that as individuals we'll accept. There's things that we won't accept. And, there's a level of, treatment or respect or whatever. There's so many things, along the way that are red flags, but you just choose to be blind because you care about this person so much. And so,
Right.
like you said, with that ex, whether, she was like a heroin addict or whatever. I mean, it goes both ways, and so it definitely comes to, a head when you're with somebody for years and you're living with them, and, and you try to bring up these situations and they just won't change, or
Right.
whatever. And it's not necessarily their fault. That's the way they were,
Right.
It was my choice to, I was at fault for expecting them to either change or improve.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but I also don't want to be that person, moving forward in my life and with relationships, be that person where if one girl does something that kind of irks me, then I'm like, well, that's it. I'm out.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, like, I say y'all, or, like, oh, that's it. It's been nice. Like, I can't like really, be that, I don't even know, like concerned with, minimal issues, but
right. Yeah, you don't want to live your life like Larry David or Seinfeld or somebody like on their shows,
Yeah.
It's like their hands are too big or whatever.
I feel myself literally when I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, pausing the show. Like, I don't know if anyone else has this issue. Whenever like shows get awkward or there's like a lot of tension, I have to pause it because I like physically cannot take it. And I'll be by myself. Oh my God, I must be the worst person. I'm a lot better when someone else is watching the show with me. But I'm so like, whenever it's awkward, I'll literally go like, it's like that gritting your teeth emoji.
Yeah.
And I'll just pause it and I'll get on my phone. And so it'll literally take me an hour to get through a 20-minute episode sometimes, or maybe even longer. It was like an hour-long episode, and I started it at like 9. The next thing I know, it was like 2:30, and I was just finishing the episode. I'm like, what the hell have I been doing? And it's because of all of these
all the awkwardness. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm awful.
Well, I hope you you get it figured out sooner than later for your own well-being. But
it's all a learning process.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. It really is.
It is, and I'm pretty sure I'll never figure it out. I'm positive I'll never figure it out, but at least you get stories in the meantime, and you have memories. Some of those memories you want to repress. Some of them, you want to remember for the lonely nights.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. To keep you nice and warm.
Oh, yeah. But, it's, you just got to keep on trying, I guess.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of like continuing to try, I want to talk some about sort of pre you joining Black Veil Brides and just the struggle of being a musician. I think oftentimes once you've reached success, which you and the band have, it's easy to kind of just skim past all of the struggles, not in your day-to-day life, but just in conversation. If you're doing interviews and stuff, oftentimes people just want to hear about the highlights, but I am all about the lowlights. So I'm just curious, what was for anybody watching, we're doing a Black Veil Brides documentary series on Patreon, which myself and Patrick Fogarty have been putting together, and all the members have talked about a variety of subjects. But Cece, I know you talked about like working in a hospital and sort of having all these false starts with bands and all that stuff. So I'm just kind of curious if you just want to kind of do a deep dive on like what that early struggle up until joining Black Veil was like.
Sure. And so like all dating stories, obviously tie that into this. Once I got the success and I was in a popular band, girls are just throwing themselves. And so there was no problem. And
right.
There was a point where I literally like couldn't even buy a date. Like no girls would even look in my vicinity. And it was during this time, struggling musician and to make myself and stuff like that. So, I had like a real esteem, but I was giving my all. I was working in a hospital. I had several different jobs, but the worst position I had at this hospital, I was working in a chart room. So it was before like, the implementation of like computers and stuff like that. And so
it was a chart room. Sorry, you were kind of cutting in and out.
Oh yeah, it was. We called it the chart room, and it was before all of like the medical records have been, kind of transitioned to electronic
digitized. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, on computers and stuff. And so it was this library of everyone's medical records, and it was like like that scene that's in I Love Lucy where like keeps coming down the conveyor belt that would come down, and it would be like an order for a medical record, and it's just like thousands a day. And I just have this big stack, and every single day I would have to like pull these charts and send them to appropriate places or doctors or offices or wherever. Every single day needed help doing it because I was never fast enough. So I had like, and I was on call for this job, and for some reason I was on call, but I worked full time. And so pretty much what they did is they just wanted to have on call employees.
Yeah.
So I have to pay for their health insurance, but they worked them full time. You know what I mean? And so
Gotcha.
in lieu of that, I think I got $1 extra per hour being on call, you know, and I put that, I use that term loosely. And so every single day I had this hope that I wouldn't get called and get a day off, but it never came. And every morning at about 5:30 or 6 in the morning, I'd hear the phone ring and I'd punch the wall because I was so angry. And, you know, it was a very dark time in my life. Every day when I'd wake up, before I would even exhale my first breath of the day, I'd already been like, oh, today sucks. Just like, that's how miserable I was. And so,
well, and particularly because it's like you're already working a job you don't like, and having that slight hope that you aren't going to have to go in that day, you know, like to not just know your schedule, like concrete every day. Like I can't think of a worse way to start your day.
Exactly. Every single day, like Monday through Friday. And, you know, I was like I was auditioning for all these different bands, and, you know, that was my ticket out. That was my way out.
Like that's just mentally how you were able to get through the day. Like, all right, I'm doing
this.
No,
it was the dream of like being able to, you know, have music as a career. Right. And so that was like my hope and my faith to get through every single day without jumping off the roof.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And so, I was living at my parents'. I mean, I wasn't making enough to like really save up and move out. I was just in this like limbo purgatory area. And so I was.
And how old were you at this point?
Early 20s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know, 21, 22.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I just couldn't get out. I was stuck in a rut, and I was auditioning for all these bands. And, you know, obviously I had my hopes and like, oh, maybe this one will take off or maybe this one will go. And all these different bands all over LA. And I would drive, you know, after work sometimes like 50 miles to go rehearse each way, you know, load my drums up in my truck, drive 50 miles, go rehearse, load the drums back up in my truck, and then drive back home. It was constantly just trying to, you know, to be successful in music and doing these things. And, you know, along the way, I met a lot of people. One thing led to another. And then I eventually got into a band that was, you know, was touring and stuff like that. But before that, there was this band, I think their name was Foolproof. And I remember hearing their song. This is back in like the pop punk days. And they were going to be signed to a record label called Island. I think it was Island. And I had an audition, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Dude, they're doing a European tour in like a month. Oh my God, like this is my ticket out, right? And so I was so nervous, and I put so much pressure on myself for this this audition. I know I could, you know, I mean, it wasn't a difficult drum, like it wasn't that hard drum playing. I knew I could nail the drum parts, but I just didn't know if it would fit, you know, like personality wise and stuff like that. And I never like the whole audition process because, you know, I have like self-esteem issues and stuff like that. So I auditioned, I nailed the drums, and I was just so like, and they weren't like, I could tell they were kind of just like, he's really good, but they weren't convinced. And so I tried to like go over and above, and I just started asking these guys, complete strangers, so what signs are you guys? Like, I want to see if we would match up, like, and be buddies, like, cosmically. I have no idea why I asked this question, because I know nothing about astrology or.
That's why I'm laughing, because, like, you know, I mean, I've known you for like 8 or 9 years at this point, and
yeah. Do you ever think I would say that to a group of strangers? that like, well, I'm really nervous trying to like get a job pretty much. That's like you going into a job interview and asking like, you know, the head boss or the person interviewing you, what sign are you? I want to see if I'd work out for this position. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I think it was just nerves, and I just knew I blew it. And I remember my buddy Taylor back then, he was at the audition, and I was like, what the hell was wrong with me? Why would I even say things like that? So I knew I blew it, and I was like super bummed. And I thought that was like my ticket out, and I just totally blew my shot.
What did they say when you asked them about that?
I think they were like, what? Like, and they were like in shock, and I was like, oh, never mind. That was a stupid question. Like, and they're just like, what's wrong with this guy? And so, and this is totally out of character. I wouldn't even do that. And I think it was like, you know, I'm not a very religious person, but maybe like divine intervention, because had I not blown that interview, I would have went on tour, and that band never really did much, to my knowledge, at least.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting in another band that was signed, or I started another band, co-started a band with a guy named Johnny, and it was called Silent Civilian, and it was like a heavy metal band type thing. And we ended up like touring the country for years and got signed and all that. And so that was kind of the foundation for my success. And I was starting to see it, you know, touring and making money and doing that. But had I not blown that interview and asked stupid questions, like something made me do it. You know, have you heard of a guardian angel?
Oh yeah.
There's like definitely somebody that wants to just sprinkle a little shit, no pun intended, you know, just, you know, like into your life. And
I always joke that Judas is my guardian angel. He's just always there to just trip me while I'm walking or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. So that was he was definitely present during that audition. And anyways, so I started touring, and in between tours, you know, I was working at the hospital. Once I started touring, I definitely earned my stripes. So I was in this band, Silent Civilian, and we were cutting our teeth, man. We were touring nonstop, literally like sometimes 5 months in a row on the road. Like we wouldn't even be home to see our families or anything. And we were just trying so hard, and we were constantly playing these shows.
And how long had you been like playing and auditioning and doing all the stuff before that band happened?
Man, oh my God, I was doing that ever since high school. So like years, at least like 5 years, I want to say. And, you know, it's really disheartening. And I always had these bands, you know, swearing up and down that they were the next biggest thing, and they're getting signed to this label. And all these bands always swear up and down that they're going to be like the best band, and they're going to be huge. And so, you know, constantly being let down by all these tall tales, you know, you kind of lose your, saying my internet is unstable. Why is it so bad today? Sorry.
Okay.
You kind of like lose your drive, and, you know, your hope in it and ambition, you know, when you're constantly let down by all these things. And so I was touring, and I thought that was it. And sure enough, we weren't making money. I couldn't afford like stuff off the dollar menu. And just, you know, like good business practices weren't put into place. And I think.
And that's where you were financially, even after you've been touring for 5 months straight?
Yeah. I mean, we even had to like sell gear, and like for everyone that says like I didn't earn my stripes, my parents would send me like boxes of Triscuit. I would have to like go into Taco, and I'll never forget this, and steal hot sauces and squirt those on like the crackers and eat that for dinner. That's how broke I was. All my credit cards went into collections. I mean, like I ended up dating a stripper at some point, so she could like pay my bills, and which you know, I'm not very proud of, but obviously that wasn't the only reason. I don't want to say that was the only reason.
Sure. Yeah. It was a benefit.
Yeah, it was just like, well, and she was actually really good to me and took care of me and stuff like that. And so it was, I just thought it was, again, divine intervention. Like, oh, she enters my life. I'm at a, you know, in a very poor financial spot. And so, and so it just got to this point to where I couldn't take it anymore. You know, like I literally almost died a couple of times on the road from dehydration or whatever. And I was in emergency room. I got admitted, and like, I was like, this is going to kill me. And I was okay with dying at that point, because, you know, I was living my dream, but I wasn't like financially, you know, winning or anything like that. And so I left that band, and I ended up working back at the hospital and like, doing like odd jobs, working at a center and stuff like that.
How hard was it to go back to the hospital after you'd been on tour for 5 months?
I felt completely defeated. Like
Yeah.
I was the biggest failure, and then
Yeah.
going, being in a touring band and having like endorsements and stuff like that, getting like, free drums and things like that. And then being on, this is when MTV2 used to play like, they had Headbangers Ball and they'd play like rock videos. So being on like MTV2 and stuff like that. And then you go back to like Guitar Center where everyone's just like, yeah, I'm going to be a big star one day. Or it's like the like where the should have beens work, or like, oh, I almost made it, and then I blew out my knee and couldn't perform on stage anymore. It was like all those guys go. So I was like stuck in that crowd. I was just like, oh my God. And then I had to get out of there. So then I went back to the hospital and I wasn't working in the chart room anymore. I was working like reception and stuff like that. But I remember just feeling one day, just feeling so like the biggest failure and just feeling so defeated because I was like, as a receptionist, like checking people in for their doctor's appointments. And I had to like deliver mail to the like all of the doctors, and one doctor was like really condescending to me or something, and I was like, dude, I just was in a band with a Grammy nominated artist and here I am like pushing a cart, like being a mail boy in a hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not doing like I'm screwing up. And so it a lot of those times are why I'm so I'd like to think why I'm so grounded still, because had I not had those those failures in my life, I think in everything, I needed to be told no by the so-called universe, like the time wasn't right or whatever, and it made me appreciate success. So when I would be playing, main stage at a festival in England, performing in front of 90,000 people, I couldn't help but think back at those times, like, thank God I'm not pushing that mail cart down the aisle and just having like everyone look at me like I'm a piece of gum stuck under their shoe. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
It gave you perspective.
Yeah, it definitely gave me a lot of perspective, and I'm very appreciative. Like now that not everything I was hoping for and dreaming for came true immediately. You know what I mean? I think it definitely gave me a long life lesson. And I think that's something that if I ever have children, I can, hopefully instill that type of work ethic, and you got to keep trying. And, if this doesn't happen, I can instill that. So, yeah, so it's just before all that. And then, getting into my band, I found I just throughout the met a couple guys. And so they ended up getting into the band I'm in now, Black Veil Brides. And eventually there was an opening and I got in. And so, I've been doing this for over 10 years now. So, yeah, it's an interesting story how all of these failures and things kind of led to this. And then now, you have all the success, travel over the world, you win tons of awards, and you have a gold single and all these fancy plaques. And then, you're looking forward back on tour, and there's this global pandemic that's easy. And so then, now we're stuck inside. And so it's just kind of like waiting around until we get the okay to go outdoor, and, and for me personally, live my dream again. So,
right. Yeah. But I'm sure everything, you've been through kind of in a way maybe help with where you're at now. Cause it's like, all right, I've been down before, I'm down now, as everybody is, I can bounce back, or, something, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I've had a really rough year too. And surprisingly, there's like some personal I can't really go to, but, I have a relationship end this year in a very traumatic way. I mean, haven't even publicly announced that really. And so I try to keep that side of my personal life private, obviously, until it's all over. One of my dogs recently passed away. So that was March 31st. And, like I said, like this global pandemic. And so I don't know. I think it's just important that during these times we just, instead of me just constantly reminding myself of all these awkward, embarrassing stories and things I should have said, things I should have done, things I shouldn't have done, big mistakes I've made. I mean, there are also great memories that I kind of force myself to remember to try to stay positive and, get myself through this. I mean, I have had some really dark times this year, but surprisingly, I'm in a great, healthy place, and I attribute that to, friends such as yourself, and, doing these types of things, and FaceTiming, and, you know, having just good people chat all over the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's, believe me, I'm the same way. Like, I still just like sometimes I'll just like be walking. It'll just look like I'm like, I don't know, having a seizure or something, or I'll just be like on the couch or walking, and then I'll think of like some awkward thing that happened in high school, and just be like, you know?
Yeah,
And then I just have to remember, it's like, you've come a long way since then. Let's look at it that way. You know?
yeah. Same for me. I have so many embarrassing stories, and I mean, I could write a whole book on them. But yeah, that's for a couple today.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, thanks
Yeah.
so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll see you soon.
Yeah, I hope this ends. We can hang out soon, man. Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
I'll assume you said I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Maybe it's when I touch this thing. I don't know. I really appreciate it, dude. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. That was the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again for Chris for coming on. It was a lot of fun talking with him and learning a lot of new stuff about the struggles of making it in the city. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm going to try and do these as often as I can. So make sure you're subscribed, whether it's to the YouTube channel or on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you don't miss a new episode. Yeah, this is it feels good to be back doing this. So I hope everybody's doing okay. Thank you so much to all of the people who have emailed me over the last couple of months just to let me know that they missed the show and they enjoy it. As I know I've said, sometimes it feels like I'm just putting this stuff out into the void, and so it's really nice to know that the show had some impact on your day-to-day life. So thank you for that. If you'd like to email me, it's badtimesgoodstoriespodcast@gmail.com. That's all I've got. So until next time, keep laughing.